Okay, Mark, so I heard through the grapevine that this week there was going to be some sort of royal announcement to do with Harry and Meghan. Now, I've looked at the papers and watched the television, but I haven't spotted anything. Has anything developed on that front?
Have you been to have an eye test? I mean, I remember the same sort of feeding frenzy around that announcement when Diana was brought forth in that chiffonous dress.
Yeah.
And there we were seeing the new addition to the House of Windsor. And I just recollect the same feeding frenzy. Although they've sort of worked themselves out recently in terms of the various power couples within the House, you've had all this fantastic publicity about Will and Kate. And to a certain extent, Prince Charles and Camilla, or the future king and future queen, are anonymous. And now they've got the royal family slap bang into the modern age. A woman of mixed race, dealing with a very open...
A yank?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Trump at the royal wedding. They haven't thought of that one yet.
Well, they don't actually have to invite Donald Trump because it's not a state occasion. You only have to invite presidents when it's a state occasion, and unless you're the heir to the throne, you don't get a state wedding. So the chances are that their wedding, Harry and Meghan, is going to be at the St George's Chapel in Windsor, which will be a rather small and measly affair, a bit like when Charles and Camilla got married.
Will it be streaming it to YouTube?
Well, of course.
Twitter?
Periscope? No, it won't. That's the thing. It'll still be behind closed doors. But what I wonder about this particular announcement is, has the British media's attitude, in fact the British people's attitude to this sort of thing, actually changed? Because I too remember Charles and Diana, and I remember Andy and Fergie. I remember, of course, Wills and Kate. And I just wonder whether or not we're getting more and more obsessed with this kind of thing, that somehow or other, as a nation, we've become more sentimental, more sloshy about this kind of nonsense. And that somehow or other, yesterday's coverage, we're now talking on Tuesday, when it was announced on Monday, I've never seen anything like it. At 10:30 at night, it was still blanket coverage on all the rolling news at 10, BBC News, nothing else happening. As they said about Greg Clark's industrial report, the industrial future of the nation, and it was a good day to bury boring news. But I think we are getting more obsessed with this. I think we're more sentimental about marriages, and we're more sentimental about deaths. We're changing as a nation, becoming soppier, if you ask me.
Well, the narrative around both William and Harry is a sort of legacy of what happened to their mother. And to a certain extent, they had responsibility for openness and that media friendliness of Diana. And we've seen the recent outpourings from Harry about mental health, and you've had much more touchy-feely regime in a certain amount of control with Catherine and William. Yeah. And the sort of royal family have learnt a lot, from the years. But we are, as a nation, we cannot not be addicted to this sentimental tosh. It does sell newspapers, and that's why newspapers are obsessed about it. That's why television is giving it so much space.
That's a nod to the past, though.
I think this is a nod to the future. I think this couple is a nod to the future.
Look. When I was on newspapers, I remember in the 1980s, we would sell for a royal engagement or a royal wedding. We would sell, almost 1 million more copies. Now, the media's reaction to it, newspapers' reaction to it, is almost stylistic. They won't sell that many more copies because people don't buy newspapers anymore. Rolling news, I'm not sure whether the customers of Rolling News really want to watch 24 hours of solid Harry and Merkel. So I think that possibly the media goes way over the top, and it's like a kind of standard issue response. Ooh, royal engagement, let's do 48 pages. Big Meghan picture special, get it tomorrow, Harry poster, but it actually won't do them that much good in the newspapers, and I'm not sure how much good it'll do the television. Journalists go crazy about it. I bet you the majority of the people in this country couldn't give a toss. I couldn't.
I disagree. I think people do care about...
Why? Why do you get that impression? Because the newspapers and the television do a lot about it.
No, I just think that if you maybe the Southeast London media bubble will have a cynical attitude towards this, but I think when it comes to people out in the shires and big cities, they do like this soap opera. Let's face it, this is a live soap opera. In fact, it's now a live episode of Game of Thrones, because you have 3 competing parties. And if we go back to what I watched last night on the BBC, this very accomplished American actress who is absolutely the bee's knees when it comes to finding comfort with a camera in front of her.
Yeah, I'll give it 2 years. I'll give it
Paddy
2
Power
years.
hasn't put the odds yet. Well, we'll see. But, they're obviously in love, and I think someone suggested, what did the very rich and affluent actress see in this, slightly odd member of the British royal family? I mean, clearly it's a status gig.
The question,
but there's 1,000 charities around the country rubbing their hands with glee, because at this moment they're a power couple who actually sit slap bang into modern 21st century UK, if not the world.
Well, I hope it's good for charity, but I don't particularly care about
Well, I
that.
think it's also good for brand Britain, isn't it? If you talk about the projection, we've now got an American right in the heart.
Brand Britain?
Well, I guess nothing else is working.
Questions that I wanted, questions that I wish I was at Kensington Palace when they were shouting questions at them. I would have shouted at her, "Do you think he'll work out better than your first husband?"
But that's certainly true.
And I've got a feeling that he won't.
But I just think what I'm going to watch is the sort of underlying politics now of Charles and Camilla, who are going to take to the throne, and they're younger, more media, more relevant, friendly royals. I'm interested in the sort of deep divisions that are now going to be created inside of Buckingham Palace and in Kensington Palace, because you're telling me that Charles is going to love this amount of attention, these people who have got modern attitudes, modern charities they would support. Listen, if you talk about who the general public and arguably the globe want to see sitting on the throne, it isn't going to be Charles and Camilla. What they want is a new
that's
media
official. There was a recent poll that the majority of people in Britain do not want Charles to become king. They want to skip a generation and move straight to William, which of course won't happen because of the golden rule of
course it won't
succession.
happen. And you're not going to let this man who's been waiting for years and years and years to take the throne, probably, old and maybe some would argue out of touch. We've got 2 other men. So I'm interested in that plot and how it will feed the press.
Because it's royal branding.
They won't be able to control it.
The point about the royal family is they are in a constant struggle and battle to survive. And
to remain relevant.
And they won't survive through the prism of Prince Charles. Because he's not popular and he comes across like something from another age. He is a crusty old thing that he doesn't really understand ordinary people. He has a servant to put toothpaste on his toothbrush. That's true, and you can't imagine. No, it's been confirmed. You can't imagine him walking into a local pub and mixing with the locals. You can actually imagine William and Harry doing it, because they often have. So they are more men of the people. I do agree with that. And the Merkel thing, not Mrs. Merkel. That would be a good one. If he married Mrs. Angela Merkel. No, marrying Meghan
Markle, not Merkel.
Marrying Meghan Markle is a fantastic royal moment, because it will increase interest in them, and it will put them centre stage.
It will increase
interest. We still as a nation will still agree to give them loads of money for no particular reason.
But I think the thing that folk have missed is actually now the internal politics that will be glossed over. They'll be throwing lawyers at this. There's got to be some ego angst back at Kensington Palace, back at Buckingham House, back in the royal circles, because Charles and Camilla are anonymous now. I think there was one moment yesterday in the news coverage where he popped up to say, I'm a 2 very happy couple. The fact is that this is a very, very interesting, savvy human now moved into the royal court. Yeah. And this is exactly the same as Fergie and Diana. Yeah, they've inserted someone that they will not be able to control. And at a certain point, she'll be giving up her career.
Wrong, yeah.
How long is that going to last before she gets bored with the
She's already given up her career.
Exactly. But how long will it last before she gets bored with the endless handshaking and royal visits that actually strip every sense of sort of spontaneity out of court.
Yeah, their job is terribly, terribly dull.
Of course it's tedious.
But interestingly, the thing about the Markle situation is that in their desperation to survive, to carry on and to be relevant in a modern age, they have abandoned everything they stand for. And in fact, far from recoiling at the idea of a divorcee, mixed race, American, not a particularly respectable profession, an actress, used to be a hostess girl on the American version of Deal or No Deal, opening the box.
Yeah. We're all going to start somewhere,
but in their
Kev.
in their desperation to survive, not only they would have in the past, if this was in the 1970s, she'd have been kicked into touch as fast as Coos Stark. Now they embrace exactly what they used to reject because it makes them relevant to modern times and will.
Well, they are in modern times. They can't go around,
Well, they
being
could.
in an episode of.
Well, how modern is it to have a servant put your toothpaste on a toothbrush?
Okay, fair
Not really
enough.
awfully
Fair
modern,
enough.
is it?
But in terms of
Don't
being
you think
relevant,
you'll find Her Majesty the Queen and Prince Philip are
she-
creatures of the modern age? They're not very 21st century.
Well, of course they're not, and she doesn't pretend to be anything other than something that actually
So
is propping up the establishment.
cynical view at the palace will be this will keep us going for another 10 years until Wills and Kate kid grows up to be 18 and starts philandering and going around the town again.
Well, it's a circle, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
and
a
that's how they
continual circle.
survive, that's how they get our money. But I think this whole royal thing is overstated. I think the majority of people in this country couldn't give a toss whether he marries her or not, and I include myself in that number.
What you've got to stop, Kevin, is sitting on the fence.
We should move on to another thing.
I think that's a good out there.